And a man with pride does not want to hear that.
No, right.
No.
And she never once tried to pretend to be something she wasn't. She's like, you're right about me.
Oh, yeah.
You're absolutely
Yeah.
right. 100%. Yes, I'm everything you've claimed that I am. I am all of those things.
Welcome to the Bookish Introverts podcast. Join host Amazon bestselling author Brett Nelson and avid reader Melanie Dyer as they dive in to review books they've read, then chat with the amazing authors behind them. Quiet minds, big bookshelves. You don't want to miss it.
Yeah, but you claim to be Michael's brother.
Yes.
And what did you just do to him?
Mm-hmm. And she did.
So
it's just like, and you claim to be his brother.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's absolutely a mental game that she has played with him. She's mean. So it's like my dad said, nothing meaner than a mean woman. And in that instance, she is mean. She is in self-defense mode. She's in self-defense mode, but it is a mean thing to do.
You never really see her get out of defense mode until maybe at the very end you start to see. Yeah.
She is always in some form of defense, even when some of her walls are breaking down.
Which is real, because when you're, thankfully, I've never lived a life of trauma like that. So, but it takes a long time to chisel away at the trauma in someone's life.
Yeah.
Especially when you've lived through that much of it.
Yes. I mean, it's literally ingrained in her from the youngest parts of her life.
Nowadays we have therapy. They didn't have that stuff back then. How do you work through those emotional,
a gun.
We also had Xanax.
Whiskey.
Exactly.
Stuff back then.
6-gun and whiskey. That's how you work through your
They drank their problems away.
Yeah.
I know. I watch Westerns. But they get back to the town, and that's when she discovers her plan was to go and get her money from Duchess. Because technically Michael has paid for her. Michael had to give Duchess money before she would let him take Angel.
Well, and they also didn't let her go willingly.
No.
I mean, he barreled his way out of there. I mean, they weren't going to stop him. They were not going to stop him. He's a big man. He's, brawny, muscular. But
Michael's a big guy.
Threw some money at him too.
Yeah.
They've mentioned that he's a big guy. He's a good looking guy.
Yeah.
He threw some money at him. So her plan is to go and get her money from Duchess.
Yeah.
But when they get to Paradise,
money working for her, that's supposed to be hers.
Yeah. It's a fair thing.
Fair is fair.
When they get to Paradise, she discovers that the brothel's gone.
Yeah,
it burned down. Lucky and Mei Ling were both killed.
Mm-hmm.
The other girls, I don't know where Duchess went. Duchess is long gone.
Yeah.
McGowan's gone. Yeah. I think a couple of the girls might still be there.
Yeah.
But
there's
now she's back in
anymore. There's no building.
Yeah, there's no building. There's no money. So now she's back in Paradise. Everyone knows who she is.
Mm-hmm.
She was famous.
Mm-hmm.
And she goes into the saloon to get a drink. And while she's there, she gets offered a job going
back to her old life.
Yeah. And she's just like, well,
what choice do I have?
Here we go again.
Yeah. And then also kind of has that mentality of, what does it matter? Who cares? Yeah. What does it matter?
Whatever.
That's all they care about me as. So
and that's all I'll ever be. Yeah. That's all that I'll ever be. She definitely has that kind of mentality.
Yeah. She's convinced she can't go back to Michael. She convinces herself she doesn't want to go back to Michael. Especially after Paul.
Right.
Why would Michael want me now? Why would
Yeah, she was never good enough for him.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So she sets up shop, for lack of a better word, in the saloon. And she's there, a couple of weeks?
Yeah.
Couple of days?
Not very long.
She's not there long. And she's entertaining a guest. And they get interrupted.
Yeah, Michael just barges in.
Michael just barges in, and the first thing she does when she sees him is yell his name.
Yeah.
it's not even conscious, I don't think. Yeah. It's just she sees him and it's
in her voice.
Yes. It's like
to see him.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's like my safe space
is
here. He's here.
Yeah.
And he tears the guy off.
The first time you get that sense from her that she views him as a safe space.
Yeah. Yes, as something more than the guy who annoys her.
Yes.
So he tears the guy off her and grabs her, and they're headed out of the saloon, and people try to stop him, and he just
fights his way out.
Yeah.
He's just like,
I'm just saying.
I don't think so.
One-handed, he's fighting these people off.
He is a stud if there ever was one.
This is my wife, and we are going home, and y'all can try to stop me, but you're not gonna have any luck. So he didn't even speak to her. He just takes her and basically throws her up in the wagon, and they start home. And I don't think they talk the entire time.
Yeah.
On the way, which that's a lot of not talking. That's several hours of not talking.
There's just like this rage inside him. You do get a little glimpse of.
Yeah, he's furious, and
then part of me wonders if there's maybe some embarrassment on her part because she left this
definitely
situation. So, I mean, I know I would feel like I had egg on my face at that point. Yeah. Your husband walked in on you while you were working.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
A lot of opportunities for awkwardness in that situation.
And I think, she'd probably closed herself off to feeling any kind of shame, but I think he was starting to wear her down a little bit, the time that they've spent together. And I think at that point, she probably did feel a little bit of shame because she's ashamed of what she just had done to him.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. And we get a little bit of insight into his thoughts while they're going home. And he literally was of two minds as to whether or not he was going to kill them both.
Right? Yeah.
And so
he was kind of going to a little bit of a dark place.
Yeah.
His thoughts were in a pretty dark place until he barged in that room and her screaming, shouting his name.
Yeah.
Was what put an end to that.
Yeah.
He's really been incredibly patient.
Yeah. More than anyone else will ever be.
Yeah.
Yeah. The way she shouted his name, I think dampened a little bit of the anger in her direction.
I think
not so much for the guys.
No, definitely not.
But he takes her home and I'm pretty sure gives her a little bit of a tongue lashing. I think it comes out is basically understood what took place between her and Paul at that point.
Yeah. I think he knew almost immediately that that's what happened.
Yes.
It's not a revelation that had to come upon him. He one look at Paul's face, he knew.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. He knew before he even went to get her what had happened on the road to paradise.
That's right. He did encounter Paul. Yeah.
Yeah.
We went.
Yeah. So things are uncomfortable for a while. I think she's both a little grateful that he came for her, but also upset that he did because she can't figure out, I'm not worth this. Why is he doing this?
He still can't figure out his game.
She just wants to be alone. She wants freedom.
Yeah. Well,
she wants her cabin.
Her walls were starting to come down a little bit, though. Like once he came from there, brought her back, I think she actually finally opened up to him a little bit and kind of told him a little bit about her past.
Yes.
And so I think she was more grateful than anything that he did come and get her. But there's still this like voice in her head that keeps telling her that she's not worthy. She's not good.
Literally.
He deserves better than her. And, and then you have Paul that's still around and reminds her every chance he gets that she is not worth, that she is not good enough.
Yeah.
And he does deserve better than her.
And when you've got that invisible voice in your head telling you you're not good enough, and then you've got the flesh and blood person you telling that.
Yes.
Again, the bad stuff is so much easier to believe than the good stuff.
Yeah,
absolutely.
That's what sticks in your mind.
And then Altman's come on the scene right about this time.
Yes.
Yeah.
And this is a family that they meet on the road in the rain. Their wagon's broken down. Their wheel is broken or something. So Michael helps the father, and it's a father and a mother who is pregnant, and
a slew of kids.
Yes. They have they already have 4 kids, I think. Miriam's the oldest. And then I think they have 2 boys and then a little girl.
Yeah.
And he's pregnant.
I have 3 girls. I can't remember. But
was it 3? I don't remember.
2 or 3.
Anyway.
And then she was
the oldest daughter and the youngest daughter are really the only ones that come into play.
Yeah.
Miriam is 16. Very beautiful. And of course she helps her mom out with the kids because that's how it was done back then, especially because the mother is not well. She's sick. And they're headed for Oregon, I believe.
Yeah, I think so.
And Michael says, well, you can stay at our house. And Angel's like, say what? They can what?
Yeah.
What do you mean? There's not room. He's like, we'll sleep in the barn. Well, what?
Yeah.
She's not on board with this. But she gets to know these people, and it doesn't take her long. I think Miriam's asking about her and trying to get to know her, and she just flat out tells her,
yeah,
we met at a brothel. He bought time with me and wanted to talk.
Yeah.
Miriam just laughs, and then she's like, oh,
you're serious.
You're serious.
And Miriam's such a very, like, fun person.
She's a very curious, lively 16-year-old girl.
Great sense of humor.
And of course, the mother's there to hear all this, and she looks sad. I think is her reaction to Angel's revelation.
Yeah,
she just looks
so accepting of her. Like they have the opposite reaction versus like the reaction of Paul when he saw.
Yes, complete opposite reaction. And then the mother even tells the father that night, and the dad's like, "Well, that's sad."
Yeah.
Yeah, but they're totally accepting of her. They really are. They're not judgmental.
Yes,
and other than Michael, this is the first time she's encountered people that are not judgmental of her.
Yeah,
and I think it was good for Angel to have their influence in her life.
Yes.
I think that helped a lot in her unthawing.
Yes. And she
needed someone other than Michael.
Yes. And she winds up spending the whole winter with them because winter's coming and there's nowhere for them to stay. They can't pass to Oregon in the winter.
Right.
So they just all wind up happy family.
Yeah.
And that's when Michael realizes that maybe he's gone about a few things wrong too, because Mrs. Altman points out Angel's clothes. You know, she's been dressing in these clothes that belong to a girl she didn't know, a girl she can't live up to.
And they're raggedy.
Yeah. Part of me also thinks it's kind of hard to come into your own identity when you're wearing someone else's clothing.
Yes. And so they help her.
Michael's cabin, like nothing was her own.
Nothing was hers.
Yeah, nothing was hers. So they help her with that. And she starts to learn to sew. And soon she has, her own clothes. And it's noticed during her fitting that, her under attire is kind of raggedy. So the mother makes her new chemise, and everything like that. And she's
That's
like,
my
I don't
grandma
want
used to say her unmentionables.
Yes.
Yeah. And Miriam, the daughter, brings them to her because the mother doesn't want her to think she's feeling sorry for her,
Yeah.
And so Miriam is tasked with taking them to her. And that's exactly what happens. Angela says, I don't need your...
She does not take...
I'm fine on my own. Yeah.
She doesn't want to be a charity case, I think.
Right.
Yeah, I don't... Yeah, basically, I don't want to be a charity case. I don't need your... And that's the first time someone besides Michael really lights into her for having so many walls up.
And again, I think it all boils back down to people don't do things nice for her unless they want something in return.
Yes.
There's always motive, even if it's just this nice lady giving her some new unmentionables.
Like, I don't want to owe anybody.
Yeah. So it kind of ties back to that. Yeah. There's no one ever does anything nice for me without just wanting something in return.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And Miriam absolutely tears into her. She says, why won't you let...
She is a precocious 16-year-old.
She's a spitfire.
Yeah.
Why won't you let any of us love you?
Yeah.
Michael loves you. My parents love you. Why won't you let us love you? If you reject this, you're going to break my mama's heart, and I will never forgive you.
Yeah.
For breaking her heart. She doesn't deserve that.
Yeah.
So she winds up taking it. And I think that's really the first truly significant thaw or sign of a defense coming down that we see. It's been bit by bit, but that's really the first big thing.
Because she was starting to let her guard down. She was starting to have feelings for Michael at this point. She was starting to feel love for him, even though she really didn't want to admit it. And she knew she loved Miriam. She loved that little girl. She loved the Altmans,
Yeah.
So she was letting herself feel emotions that she probably hadn't felt since she was a very little girl.
Mm-hmm. And it was scary. It's scary.
Yeah. It's hard to know how to accept that.
Yeah.
Yeah. When you've shut yourself off that long.
Yeah.
And Paul is still around. He's a little bit of a complication because Miriam has a crush on Paul.
Yes.
Which nobody realizes, which is, that bugs me.
Hilarious.
No one realized that she has, feelings for Paul. Everybody thinks that she has feelings for Michael.
Yeah.
Yeah. And Paul doesn't even realize she has feelings. I think Michael's the only one that realizes that she has a crush on Paul. Michael's the only one.
Yeah.
And so she has a crush on Paul, but Paul is still very
brooding.
Brooding. And while he doesn't say anything to Angel, there are looks, and it's just all very awkward. And that troubles Miriam. So like, well, what could she have possibly done to make him, because she loves Angel. She absolutely loves her at this point. And it starts to get very complex because Angel has convinced herself that Miriam is in love with Michael. And she's convinced herself that Michael could fall in love with Miriam if she were out of the picture.
Yeah.
So it's really no longer, I need to leave because for me, I need to be free. Now it's more, I need to leave for him.
Yeah.
Because if I leave, then he can be happy with Miriam.
Mm-hmm.
She's young. They're both beautiful. She can give him children.
Yeah.
Because we found out in the interim.
There is.
Yeah, we found out in the interim
that Angel is not capable of having children anymore because Duke took care of that little problem.
Which doesn't really fit the biblical version of it because Gomer does have children.
Yes, that's true.
Yeah, but neither here nor there.
Loosely based.
Yes, loosely based.
But
that's a big piece of that puzzle is that
because she had gotten pregnant.
She knows that he wants children. Now she doesn't keep that from him. She tells him that eventually. I can't remember exactly where in the book.
She does eventually. She unravels her past in bits and pieces.
Yes.
She tells him, I think at this point they have finally consummated.
Yeah.
Their marriage,
up at this point.
I think at some point after he brought her back.
Yes. I think
that took place.
Or maybe even before that. I can't remember now.
I'm not sure it was before.
Yeah.
But it happened. Yeah.
But it happened. But she has told him what happened with Duke, how old she was, which has just broken his heart. Because it's not like, we know these days, thanks to the news and things like that things like that happen. But back then, if you were not, in a city where something like that was reported, or if you were not acquainted with someone in a town who that, also people just didn't talk about it. Right. It was not a thing that you really considered, who would do that to a child.
Yeah.
It was beyond, so he's just shattered over that. And it explains, it gives him so much insight into why she is the way she is. And so then I think in bits and pieces, the next thing she tells him is that she can't have children because she got pregnant. Duke made her have an abortion. And then she got pregnant again. And he made her have an abortion and told the doctor to make sure it did not happen again.
Right.
And that's another thing in the reviews that Francine Rivers really got slammed on, because a lot of the reviewers say this is an anti-abortion book. They're furious that, again, she doesn't glorify a sin. Abortion is sinful.
What a thought.
It doesn't really fit in because this isn't my body, my choice. It wasn't her choice.
Yeah. Well,
none of this has been her choice.
Yeah.
Well, in her entire life, nothing was her choice. Nothing was.
Yeah. Nothing has been her choice. Since the age of 8, she has not had a choice in anything. She hasn't even had a choice in what food she eats.
Yeah.
Well, and she didn't even have a choice in Michael taking her away. Like, that wasn't her choice either.
No. That wasn't her choice either. So she's just been kind of robbed of choices.
That's why she wants to live in a little cabin out in the middle of nowhere by herself, because she wants to decide what she eats, when she sleeps.
Yeah. And there's still that part of her that's still there. But I think more than anything, she's to a point now where she does love him, and she's admitted to herself that she loves him. But she loves him so much now, she wants better for him.
Yes.
She wants him to be with somebody that can give children.
He wants kids. She knows he does.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And she is the obstacle to him having kids. She sees herself as the obstacle. So she's told him that, and he has told her, I will be happy just with you for the rest of my life. We don't have to have kids. It would be nice, but it's not. He has told her basically said it's not a deal breaker.
Yeah, like it's me and you, like until we die. Like I'm giving up.
Yeah, it's us.
Giving up on you. Like we're married. I've made a vow, and I'm sticking with it.
Yeah. Well, and back in the day, especially in biblical days, it was lineage was very important.
True.
To continue the family, the family bloodline, and so. For her to not be able to give that to him, I'm not sure if that was so much a thing in the 1800s. You would probably know, Melanie, because you read in that genre a lot. But since this is loosely based off of Scripture, of course that wasn't an issue in Scripture because Gomer was able to have children. But
it was for Sarah and Abraham.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes.
Exactly.
I mean, he has this farm that he's building up. And, you want, he would want to leave that to someone.
Right. Yeah. He's building himself. Yeah.
It's a legacy, and he would want to keep it in the family. So it's in that, but I think he just wants kids. It's not so much.
He does.
Yeah. It's not so much carrying on his name. He just wants kids with the woman he loves. And she's telling him she can't have them. And he's like, well, then I just want the woman I love.
Yeah.
Enough.
Yeah.
And he's disappointed. There's no sense in saying that he's not.
Right.
But he loves her. So it doesn't matter to him. So she's gotten that bit out, but she has completely decided that she's going to take herself out of the equation. She's got to go. She's decided she's going to go to San Francisco. Get out of there. It's so far away. He's not going to come looking for her. Miriam is right here. He'll get over her. He can marry Miriam, and they can have all these beautiful children and live happily ever after. And before she goes, she tells him the worst thing she's ever done.
Mm-hmm.
Which I was like, man, that's dark.
Mm-hmm.
It's dark.
Yeah.
Which back in New York, when she was still with Duke, probably, I don't know, a year before she managed to leave or something, she runs into her father.
Mm-hmm.
Now, of course, he doesn't know her because he hasn't seen her since she was like 7 years old. And he barely saw her before then. And she's technically a grown woman now. But he's at one of Duke's gatherings or whatever, and Duke introduces them, and she decides right then, I'm going to take my revenge on this man.
Mm-hmm.
And it's pretty twisted.
Yeah.
He
pays for her services,
do what they do.
Mm-hmm.
And then she tells him she's his daughter.
Mm-hmm.
And that's her revenge.
Yeah.
And he's I think he winds up
himself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's really dark. Not only is it incest, wittingly, she knew who he was. It's not like she didn't realize who he was until after. She did this on purpose.
Mm-hmm.
And it's she was the cause of him, unaliving himself. That's it's dark. It's dark.
It is. And what's even another little twist to that is that Duke knew what he was doing, because she had confided in Duke about her father, about feeling abandoned by him, so on and so forth. Because she came to a place where she thought she loved Duke because he was her provider.
Yeah.
And so she did confide.
And there is a disorder where people fall in love. It's like kidnapped people fall in love with their captors. So it kind of feels kind of similar to that. Because she really shouldn't have fallen in love with Duke, but
he was like her provider. I mean, he was like all she had.
Yeah.
And he took care of her and provided for her. So she had told him, things about her past. And so he knew that Alex Stafford was her father, and he knew who this man was. So he brought him in purposefully, like, okay, do your worst. Let's see, like, what are you going to do in this situation?
Yeah.
I mean, he's sick and twisted for sure.
Very.
Yeah. Yeah. As if he wasn't already sick and twisted enough.
Yeah.
Let's add another layer.
A new level.
Yeah.
But he thought, and I mean, she twisted that knife hard.
She did. For her mother.
Yeah.
It wasn't the right thing to do.
No.
I understand her desire for revenge, of course.
Yeah.
But yeah. But she tells Michael, and that's her last huge secret, really.
Yeah. And it's like, I'm going to reveal this thing to him, and now he's not going to want me anymore.
Exactly.
And he's going to let go of me.
Yeah.
He's going to let me go.
And
go after.
Yeah. And he is, of course, flabbergasted and stunned by this. But I don't remember, I don't know if he says, I forgive you. I don't think he puts it like that.
No, it wasn't for him to forget. But
it's not.
But it didn't change what he felt about her.
Yes, it's a reassurance of his love for her. And at this point, she's just like, what do I have to
what do I have
do
to do to like get rid of you?
Get this man to not love me. I don't understand.
Right.
And so she's just like, I've got to go. I've got to leave. I got to get out of here. The Altmans by now have decided to stay in California. So they have their own homestead about 2 miles away. I don't remember. Did she catch a ride with like a supply wagon?
Yeah, he was some sort of vendor.
Yeah, a peddler or something like that.
Nice little old man.
Yes,
yeah.
thanks
to
a lot.
get
And I
to
think
get out of there. Yeah, that's right.
For sure.
In this
Yeah.
moment.
Yeah.
Nice little old man. That's right.
Yeah, I can't remember his name, but yeah, Jonathan Axel. No, that's the wrong one. Yeah,
no, that's different.
Anyway, yeah.
But a nice old man that got through to, what was it, San Francisco?
To San Francisco, yeah.
Yeah.
She goes to like
the
mercantile or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they knew
before she manages to leave.
But they knew she was in connection to Michael, though, because they knew that was Michael's wife. It wasn't like, oh, I know who you are. You're the prostitute.
Yes.
Like, I know who you are. You're Michael's wife. So
which was different for her. Yeah. Her identity is not just attached to her line of work anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah. But before she leaves, Miriam catches her. And she gives Miriam, I think, the ring. She give this to Michael. And of course, Miriam's yelling at her, like, have you lost your mind? He loves you. What is wrong with you? Why are you so intent on, hurting everyone who loves you? And she says, I know you love Michael. And Miriam's like, of course I love Michael. Who doesn't love Michael? That's how she means it. Of course I love Michael.
But the way she said it was like, yeah, I do love him. But of course, Angel's taking it like, okay, we're in love with him.
Not romantically. Yeah.
So while she's driving away with this peddler, she tells Miriam, she says, be patient, just wait for him, and he'll realize that he loves you too. And Miriam's just standing there going, wait, what? Right. And then she, wait, no, I don't love him.
Right. It's like,
that's not what I meant.
Yeah.
So Miriam's just incredibly frustrated. Because that's not the first time someone has said, her parents have already talked to her about the way she spends time with Michael and all this stuff.
Because they think,
and she's like, I'm not in love with Michael. Why does everyone think I'm in love with Michael? So she's very frustrated.
Yeah.
Everyone thinks she's in love with Michael except Michael.
Yeah.
Yes.
But Angel takes off, goes to San Francisco and sets up. She does wind up working in the shop with
the owner and his wife.
The owner who was also the storekeep in Paradise.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But he left after he got married.
And they've got a heater that Michael ordered, so they know that Michael is coming at some point.
And I think that the shop owner, he kind of has assessed the situation. He kind of feels like he knows what's going on. And so I think he got word to Michael, like, she's here. I'm protecting her. She's safe here. Because she was there for what, like a month or
wow.
two?
Yeah.
Or 3 months or something? I don't know. It was like several months before Michael comes to get the heater. And she wanted to try to be gone before he got there, but this store owner held her up and was... Now,
at this point, was Michael to the point where he's like, you know what, I'm not going after her again?
Not this time.
Okay.
We're almost there.
Okay, we're almost there.
No.
Okay.
Yeah.
No, did he take her back this time?
No,
she only went
and came back. So I think you've got a little confused with when Miriam, when her and Miriam have that encounter that you were talking about. That's the last time she left.
Yeah.
This is the second.
Was there another time that she got to Paradise and
I don't know.
Up in the store?
I'm getting fuzzy on the locations.
Sorry, guys.
Yeah, maybe it was Paradise that she came back to this time.
For the people who haven't read this is a 500+ page book, so there's a lot of details.
I've several times, and we went back and got her several times. So,
and it's been a while since we've...
So he does come and get her, brings her back, and they live happily for a while. And she does like lets her guard down and just falls madly in love with him. They're living, with the Altmans and everything, but they're still... And I feel like it goes back to the fact that she cannot have children.
Yeah.
And I think that's what
Yes.
drives her. But there's a part of the book that I wanted to point out because it kind of goes along with this, like putting God in his rightful place. Because at one point he tells her, because he called her Amanda, which that's another kind of little thing that she had so many names that there were different names that he called her because she would not tell him what her real name was. He knew her real name was an Angel.
Yeah.
And he didn't want her Angel because that was her prostitute.
That was tied to her prostitute.
You know. And so he called her Mara at one point because it made bitter, and he called her Tarza, but stuck with Amanda. And that's how the Altmans knew her, as Amanda. And he said, Amanda, I don't want to be the center of your life. I want to be part of it. I want to be your husband, not your God. And so she was really, I think at this point, he was becoming kind of like a God to her in that he was her everything.
Yeah.
Like she finally let her guard down to where she trusted him. And he was like her protector. He was her provider. He was her savior in a way.
In a sense, he was her savior because he brought her out of that horrible life she was in.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. It got to a point where he was on a pedestal.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it comes to the point where she just knew that she had to leave. And I think at this point, God was in it. God was in it, her leaving this because, and I think God even told Michael, let her go.
Yeah.
Because they had one like last night together, if you remember. They go to the place on the hillside.
And the mountain and look at the stars.
And she's dancing for him and all this stuff.
Yeah.
They have an erotic night.
Yes.
But I think he knew that she was leaving again.
Yeah.
And he had to let her go this time. And he couldn't go after her. And she was leaving because, again, she falsely thought that he would be better off with Miriam and she could have his kids and all of this.
Self-flagellation.
She mistakenly thought that. And this was being more sacrificial. At this point, she was sacrificing her wants and needs, her desire to be with Michael at this point, to let him have a better life.
Yes.
And that's how we get to San Francisco.
Yes. Yeah. And that's when, she has that encounter with Miriam, gives the ring, give that to Michael, and you guys have kids, be happy.
And so once she gets to San Francisco, that's the point where she gets the job as a cook in the little hotel.
She gets a job as a cook.
Yeah.
Yes. And Miriam's already told Michael, she says she's gone, and Michael's like, well, I figured.
Not going after her.
You're going to go after her.
Yeah. And Miriam can't understand. Like, go after her.
Yeah, Miriam doesn't understand.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Paul's glad. Miriam doesn't understand. Her parents don't really understand, but I think they realize that Michael's trying to do what he's being told. Mm-hmm. Miriam's just like, I can't even get the guy I like to notice I'm alive. I don't understand. Typical. I think she's about 17 at this point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
she's just fed up with Paul. She's like, this guy's an idiot. He does see that I like him. And I know he has feelings for me. I know he does.
Just as thick as he can be.
Yeah.
So I love Angel.
She definitely has boldness. That's for sure.
Angel is off. And I think she's really kind of discovering who she is on her own.
Yes. And she needed that.
Yeah.
She needs this.
She needed to kind of be out
on her own. She knows who she is.
She needed to know that she could make it on her own without prostitution.
Yes.
Being her go-to.
Yes.
She knows who she is as a prostitute.
Yeah.
She knows who she is as Michael's wife. But she doesn't know who she is.
Right. Yeah.
So she's cooking for this guy, and they've struck up a friendship, and she has friends in town, and she has a respectable life. I mean, she's not making a whole lot of money, but she's making a living, and they like her cooking, and all this stuff's going on. And she's been there for about a year, I think.
Yeah. Good long time. Been doing that. Mm-hmm.
And then there's a fire.
Mm-hmm.
And the whole restaurant, hotel, whatever it is,
burned to the ground.
It burns down. And when they're picking through the pieces the next day, guess who shows up?
Lo and behold.
Oh, look.
Up to see.
It's Duke.
It's Duke.
Who has apparently decided the West Coast is for him.
Yeah.
So now, since Duke considers her his property, since she ran away, like, well, we'll just take you back. Come on, let's go.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And she doesn't really have...
She doesn't have a choice but to go with him.
A choice.
Her the shop owner.
Yeah. He's threatening this man that she's befriended.
Yeah.
This man who's a no-fake.
He'll kill that man.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah, he'll kill him.
Yeah.
He's not capable of defending himself.
Yeah.
So she's like, well, it was too good to be true.
Yeah.
And winds up back at the brothel. This time I think it's a whole saloon that he's got, because there's like a stage and everything.
Yes, I agree.
Yeah. And he's like, well, we'll set up a show for you to make your debut. And she meets a little girl about 11 years old, 10 years old, I think. She knows who that is. I don't remember her name, what they called her.
Cherry.
She meets another girl who's just, I think, maybe a little older than her or her age. And she was Duke's, apparently. Of course, now she's too old for him. So she's reacquainting herself with, the lifestyle. Who is it that sort of prompts her to be brave? I feel like it's someone that worked there to go out on that stage and do something, or was it just she heard a voice in her head?
Well, God started kind of talking to her almost in an audible voice.
Yes.
And
yeah, that's been going on for a little while.
Yeah. And she was like, who is that? Who's talking to me? What's going on? And, and I love it because she uses the word beloved, and he's like, beloved,
Yes.
And, and she's just like, I just want to die. Like, I'm never going to get out of this. I'm going to die this way. She was losing hope fast. And God is, and at one point he says, I am the way, Sarah. He calls her Sarah. God knows who she is. God knows exactly who she is.
Yeah.
He said, I'm the way, Sarah, follow me. And so God was speaking to her. He was getting her to a place of
listening.
Yeah.
And obeying.
Yeah. Yes. And kind of getting her guard down, because she was anti-religion because she had bad experiences.
This whole time.
That too. Her mom did too.
Yeah.
So she thought God was just this big thing in the sky that's going to squash you like a bug, if you made a slight mistake or whatever.
And I just loved that, watching her recognizing that still small voice and coming, I thought that was, I liked watching that.
I did too. And coming to a realization that, because Michael, he was a Christian man, and so he would read scripture. Like, they'd be in the cabin night after night. He would just read scripture night after night. And so it was getting inside of her, whether she wanted it to or not, or realized it was or not. And then, they had learned this song, Rock of Ages.
Yes.
And she'd learned the song, and they were singing it one day and into the well, echoing or whatever, and her, Miriam, and Michael. And so she's, it's like cattle. They're like herding cattle onto the stage for the highest bidder. I mean, it's sickening. It's disgusting. And she's brought out onto the stage, and all eyes are on her. Of course, she's beautiful. All the men are salivating over her. And she just starts singing. The only thing that came to her mind was this Rock of Ages. And she didn't probably realize she knew the words to it, and then she, like, something caught her attention, and then her mind went blank. And she couldn't remember the words anymore. And then she hears this man in the back picked up where she left off and started singing.
Yeah.
Yes.
So powerful.
Yeah, it's powerful.
It is.
Yeah.
It is.
And that man was the banker. I can't remember
Jonathan
his
Axel.
name. Because he was walking by and he heard her singing. Now, he wasn't going to frequent a place like that.
Yeah.
But he was walking by on the street and heard her singing. And the Lord just, was like, hey, you need to stick around here for a minute.
And again, that had to have been orchestrated by the Holy Spirit. Oh, yeah. What are the chances that he would walk by a godly man just at the point that she was singing Rock of Ages?
Yeah. I mean, because it had, at that point, God had to intervene or she was going to go right back into that prostitution and being Duke's, servant, basically, his property. And only God can intervene in that moment. Because up to this point, Michael was the one that came and intervened.
Yes.
Michael was the one that came and rescued her and saved her. And this time it couldn't be Michael. It couldn't be. It had to be God. It had to be him intervening and rescuing her.
Yeah.
So she could see that, yes, Michael's a wonderful man, but he is servant to God. He is servant to God. God is the one you need.
Yes.
He's your savior. He's the one you need to worship.
Yes.
And adore,
And that is such a powerful message.
Yeah.
There is so much depth to this book. It really is.
It really is.
It surprised me most about this book. There is such spiritual depth in it and spiritual parallelism.
Oh, yeah.
But there's not a lot of Christianese content in it. There's not a lot of, you know that they read scriptures and that they pray and all that, but it's not. It's just it's woven so intricately into the story that it's there, but it's not there.
Yes.
And that's amazing to me, because I'll be honest, as a Christian fiction, I love reading Christian fiction. And one of my biggest pet peeves about Christian fiction is there is an art to writing good Christian fiction. And it doesn't need to bang you in the head. And a lot of Christian fiction bangs you in the head because, and nothing about the authors, but they bang you over the head with Christianese and with scriptures and with, and and that's one thing I liked about Francine Rivers in this book. She wove it so intricately into the story that it was there, but it wasn't there.
You didn't even realize it was there.
Yes. And I'm like, that is skill.
Yeah, I agree. 100%.
And I loved reading that because sometimes I get frustrated by the overwhelming, because it's a lot of times Christian authors don't know how to write Christian fiction in a way that it doesn't bang people over the head.
Yeah. Well, and like you said, it just parallels like almost the entire Bible because, the children of Israel, they were constantly turning away from God, that idol worship and other gods.
They couldn't get away from their way of doing things.
Right. Well, they would always adopt other cultures' way of doing things and want to adopt like their gods and things. And today, like, we're the same. We put things before God.
We are no better than
we're not. We're not. And
except our gods are Netflix and anything
our
that
phones,
our iPhones, anything that takes our attention away from God is an idol.
Absolutely.
It can become an idol.
And it's like, who is sitting on the throne of your life? And that's one thing the author talked about. She said, I was in charge of my life. I lived for me for a long time.
Yeah.
And I feel like I fell in that category, like even as a Christian. That I still like wanted to be in control myself.
Yeah.
And so that's been a hard lesson to learn that I feel like God's teaching me that, let go, Jessica. Let me have control and let me be on the throne of your life. Let me sit there.
Yeah. It's easier said than done sometimes.
Because I've been trying to sit there and he's like, let me be there. Let me be in control.
Yeah. Well, and I kind of want to touch on Michael Hosea for a little bit. In some of the reviews I read, there was a lot of people that hated Michael Hosea, because a lot of it was because he forced her to marry him. It was basically against his will, but against her will, Angel's will. But some of the people in the reviews, they were like, "Oh, I would love to meet a man like Michael Hosea,
to come rescue me."
Yes, to come rescue me. Yeah. But to me, I didn't really I saw Michael Hosea more as symbolic of God.
I think so.
And that's why a lot of viewers, I think, they're talking about, I'd like to find, well, you're not really looking for a man like Hosea. How they say there's a God-shaped hole in your heart that nothing but God can fill.
Yeah.
And like what you really want is God.
Yeah.
I mean, does that make sense? Did like, to me, in my mind, Michael Hosea was more
a
representation of God, because Michael Hosea was so forgiving. How many people do you know of that would men especially, that would go after a woman time after time after time after time? Only God would do that.
And how much forgiveness he had to have towards
her.
He never
did things that hurt him. I mean, I don't know if they were intentional or not, but they still were hurtful.
And he did get angry at her a few times, but he never held her past against her. He never threw her past back at her.
And that's what Jesus does for us.
Exactly. Absolutely. Exactly.
I mean, it's like he will take on our sin and cast it away, and it's forgotten, by him.
Yes.
And I'm just thankful for his blood, that it covers a multitude of sins.
Yeah, thank goodness.
But so, back to the story though. Angel, Sarah, Mara, Amanda, whatever you want to call her. But
she have many names.
So this man, God sends this man basically rescue her out of that place. And he does, because he's an influential man. Even Duke, because Duke, you kind of have a sense that he's people are scared of him.
Yes.
Like, he's in control, he's large, he's in charge, all of this, but he was not about to defy that banker.
Yeah.
He walked out of there from the state. They didn't even go out the back door. And she said, I'm not leaving without these two girls. We're taking them with us. And they went they walked onto the stage. And what that did was it showed everybody in there who Duke was, because he had a little girl in a place like that. And they thought, oh my gosh,
he shined the light of what Duke really is.
And
because one of them actually says, what's a child that age doing here? And she looks straight at him and says, what do you think?
Yeah. And it was like realization. And it talked about people just have shame on their faces, and it's like, wow, what am I doing here?
Yeah.
So it really, and I don't know what happened. I don't think it ever says what happened to Duke. I'm hopeful that I don't know.
Put him out of business.
Well,
we'll probably string him up.
That's what I'm saying. Does that sound sadistic that I would like for that I wanted that to happen? I wanted him to be strung up.
Yeah.
I mean,
at the very least, they put him out of town, but he deserved more than that.
Yeah.
But that banker and his family took them girls in, and they found like adoptive families for those other two. And Angel stayed with them for a while. And she ended up, her and the banker's daughter, they started this like a halfway house.
Yeah.
Yes.
And so of course he helped finance it and everything. I mean, total God thing that that this banker, this rich man is the one that like came to her rescue and helped them finance this. And so, I mean, we're talking, what, 2 or 3 years have gone by?
Yeah, about 2 years since the fire even.
Yeah.
Yeah. So maybe like 3 years since she's left.
It's been Michael. 3 years since she's left Michael.
Yeah.
Yes.
And so Miriam has never given up that Angel, that someone needs to go get Angel. And so she gets Paul, of all people, she gets Paul to go look for her and find her.
Which at this point, they are actually married, her and Paul.
Yes.
And she is pregnant. And Miriam is emotional and pregnant and wants her friend. And she's like, this is enough.
Yeah.
Go get my friend.
So Amanda.
I got it.
They call her Amanda.
Yeah.
I don't care what your problem is with her. Go get her.
Yeah.
I need her. Michael needs her. We all need her.
Yeah.
You're just going to have to get over it.
Yes.
Because he loved Miriam so much, he's willing to do, because he's hard. He still has that bitterness inside of
Yes.
resentment towards her.
Yeah.
His feelings have not changed.
Yeah. And sending Paul after her seems like such an odd choice, but really it's a good choice.
I think it's the one that he's the one that had to do it.
Yes, because to have someone like him who has been such an antagonist to her, to then come to her and say, look, you need to come back, Michael. It's been so long since I've read. I can't remember exactly what, but I'm like, okay, that's such an odd choice to send, but I totally get it.
Yeah.
And I think because he still had that attitude towards her. He absolutely did.
Oh yeah, he doesn't like her.
No.
And then once
he's prepared to go and find her in a brothel.
Oh yeah. And so he finds her, thinks he's finding her in that type of lifestyle again. But then he realizes pretty quickly that that's not what's happening here, and that she's actually helping other girls get out of that type of lifestyle. And something shifts within him. And it's just like this veil has been lifted, and he can see now, he could see his own depravity. He can see, like, really, he hated himself more than he hated her.
Yes. People like that usually do.
Yeah. Yeah. And so it was just like this light bulb moment for him. Did you have something to say, Melanie?
No. I think you're right. I think, he suspects her of being a kept woman because he sees her with the banker.
Yeah.
He kisses her on the cheek.
Yeah.
And oh, well.
Yep.
And then she goes into
what I thought.
Yeah.
And then she goes into a house, and I don't remember what they named the house, but he's like, oh yeah, one of those.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then of course he walks in on the banker's daughter, and she's teaching a class.
Yeah. Yes.
And they all laugh at him. So he's a little humbled from that.
Yeah. Well, he's just trying to figure out what is going on here.
I was like, where am I? And I mean, he's realizing that things aren't what he thought. He still does not care for her.
Yeah.
In his opinion, she's broken Michael's heart too many times.
Yeah.
For her own selfish reasons.
Yeah.
He doesn't know why she left. Michael has never told him anything about her, because why would he? It's none of his business. He just thinks Angel wanted out, and that was that.
Mm-hmm.
So he still hasn't forgiven her. Obviously, she's not what she was.
Right.
And he's, like you said, he's starting to realize, well,
there's more to her than
meets the eye.
She's
changed too, a change in
yes,
her.
yes.
Mm-hmm. And that's a good lesson to us all, to not, what you see
don't judge
in people is not always, there's almost always something deeper to that.
Yes.
And I'm saying that to myself too, there's usually more to the story than what you see.
Yeah. Well, and in the conversation they're having, he comes to the realization that she thinks that Miriam is having Michael's baby.
Yes.
He mentions that Miriam is pregnant. And she does not know that Miriam married Paul. That's Paul's baby that they're talking about.
Yeah.
And then he's like, oh my gosh, you think that's Michael's baby? Like, no, I'm married to Miriam. That's my baby. And she's like, and she was kind of mad because she's
and then she gets mad at him. Like, why would you do that?
Why would you do that? He could have been happy. Like, why would you do that to Michael? And
that's when he realizes
that she was more sacrificial in leaving that last time, because she wanted Michael to be happy and have
it softened him a little.
Mm-hmm. And so then I think his defenses lowered, and he was just like, oh my gosh, I've misjudged her, and I've been to blame just as much as her. And
it was all a very tangled web. It really was.
Oh, yes. And I mean, isn't that the way it goes? I mean, miscommunication,
jumping to conclusions.
Yes. And we've all been there, and we've all done that.
Yeah, we have.
Yeah.
But like you said, and even if someone has lived a checkered past, doesn't mean that they have to stay in that. You don't have to stay like that. You can be transformed by the renewing of your mind. The Holy Spirit, God can transform you into a new creation.
Well, you don't have to live like that.
Yeah.
And we also, as the people around each other, we have to be willing to let people off the hook.
Let you out of that box.
Yeah,
we have to keep you in that box.
Yes, and we have to be willing to let people off the hook for their. Nobody likes having their. We all have done stupid things. We've all had past that we're not proud of, but we need to let each other off the hook.
Yeah.
Sometimes we don't do that.
I know.
Yeah.
Yeah, we can all be better at that.
Yeah,
for sure, and not being judgmental.
No, not at all.
Each other.
Yeah,
we are.
Like I said, I'm pointing fingers at myself just as well.
So Angel at first is like, no, I can't go back. No, this is my life now. I'm at peace. Yeah. And then I don't know. I think God or something changes her mind, like beloved, you know what you need to do now. Like, I'm releasing you from this, because she had that other girl, the banker's daughter. She could kind of leave, like, hey, you're in charge now.
Yes.
She could leave that to her. So she didn't abandon that.
Well, again, it was perfectly orchestrated by God, because when Angel left, there was someone to stay at the helm of the ship.
Yeah, exactly. So that didn't just fall by the wayside. She had someone to take that on.
Which made it easier for Angel to go, because if she had left and there hadn't been someone to take over, she might not have wanted to leave, because she had a passion for helping get these girls out of that lifestyle.
A need for that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, and I think she was scared too. She was scared.
Well,
because she was afraid that Michael had or resentment.
And that's understandable.
Towards her.
Yeah, and he would have been justified if he had.
If he had felt that way. He had every right to feel that way.
Yeah.
So she didn't know what she was coming back to. Even though I'm sure Paul alluded to, like, he's still waiting for you.
Yeah.
He's waiting for you. He has not given up on you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's something coming from Paul. Because Paul could, honestly, Paul could have been like,
it's like, he's already moved on. Which I think he tried to say that at first.
Yeah.
Like, he's moved on. He's good without you. He don't miss you.
Yeah. So if Paul's saying that, that's saying something.
Yeah. Yeah. 100%. So she does.
Yeah.
She goes back with Paul. And this is like the perfect ending in my mind. I love how she wrote this, because they end up going, to Paul's cabin, and she meets up with Miriam, and they get to kind of reunite. And Miriam's, she looks at Paul and she's like, "You're different. Like, something's different about you." She's like, "You don't have that bitterness anymore. You've let that go. It's amazing. It's wonderful what God can do."
See what happens
when and forgive. Forgiveness it's not even for the other person. It's for you.
It's for you.
Because you don't want to harbor that, within you. It'll eat you up.
It'll eat you up. It'll kill you.
It was him. It was eating him up. So, but I love this imagery of Sarah walking, because she said, "I have to go the rest of the way by myself." Yeah. So she walks across the field to Michael, and he's working in the field. And as she's going, she's peeling off layers.
Yeah.
And it's so symbolic. It's layers of clothes, but it's layers of years of abuse, years of self-hate, and years of bitterness and anger and all that. Yeah. And she's peeling it off. So by the time she gets to Michael, she is all natural.
And that Francine Rivers got a lot of hate for that scene in the reviews.
But I love it.
But I'm like, can you people not see the symbolism of what that is? She's literally peeling the layers of her previous life, and she's starting over.
She's letting it go.
Yes.
Because this whole time it's had a hold on her.
And how can people not see that's...
It has held her back.
It's beautiful.
It's beautiful.
Yes,
yeah.
It's not dirty. There's nothing like sexual about it.
No, there was nothing.
Pure.
Yeah.
It's pure. And she just falls to her knees at his feet and just like, Michael, I am so sorry. Please forgive me. And it says she realized that he already had.
Yeah.
It's beautiful.
Yeah, and that's symbolic of that's how God wants us to approach him. Stripped down.
Yes. Broken.
Yes, and that is just symbolic of our relationship with God, because that's how he wants us to approach him.
Yes. Yeah. Strip off everything that besets us.
Strip off all the weights.
Yes, your burdens, oh my gosh, your sins. Let them go. Let them have it, So I marked this down because this, I just love this so much. And he's called her Amanda. And he holding her tenderly, and he started calling her Tirza. I'm not even sure if I'm saying that right.
Yeah.
And then this still small voice said Sarah, and she knew that the one gift that she had to offer was herself, and so she finally told him her real name.
Yeah,
it was beautiful.
Sarah.
Yeah,
Sarah. Yeah. And he was like, "That makes so much sense. That's perfect.
Yeah.
Of course, that fits. That." And then it was like God gave him a promise in that moment, because he thought about Sarah in the Bible that was barren, that couldn't have children. And God answered their prayer and gave them children. And he knew in that moment, God was giving him that promise as well.
Yeah. And again, that is so symbolic of our relationship with God, because That's all God wants from us. He just wants us. He wants us to give ourselves to him.
Yeah. Yeah, just our pure form.
Yeah.
Like, with no pretense.
No pretense. Yeah.
No fake.
Yeah. Come to him as you are.
Yeah.
He will clean you up. Just come to him as you are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I love the symbol. I love the, like, you know, the fact that she kept her name to herself for years and years and years. No one knew her name was Sarah. The only person that knew her name was Sarah was her mom, and she was long gone. And then which was also long gone.
Yeah.
They're the only people that knew her real name.
Yeah.
Until she finally, like I said, once she finally stripped herself of the past, she just got rid of it, and it wasn't bound to her anymore. She wasn't bound to it anymore.
Yeah.
And then she could just be like, this is who I really am. I can show you who I really am now.
Yeah. Oh, it's so powerful.
Yeah.
So powerful.
It is.
Melanie.
Very much so.
And look, I'll probably read again.
My third time to read it all the way through.
Yeah. What are you thinking, Melanie?
Well, I noticed some of the names, and this isn't the case for the whole thing. You know, I mentioned Duke and Duchess. The fact that they're referred to by titles sort of adds to their inhumanity.
Mm-hmm.
True. Yeah.
But the three main people we've got here, you know, we've got Sarah, who's also known as Angel. Angels are beautiful and otherworldly, and that's, you know, how people have looked at her all her life. She's just so beautiful. And but her name is also Sarah. And then we have Michael, Hosea, and we have Paul. Now Hosea is obvious, since this is a variation on the book of Hosea. But Michael, obviously, most of us know Michael as the name of an angel.
Yeah, archangel.
Yeah.
An archangel. And you could argue that he was sort of angel.
Yeah.
He was kind of her guardian.
I didn't think of it.
Angel for the majority of the book.
Yeah.
And then you have Paul, who, when you think about it, you have Saul in the Bible, who is not a good man.
No.
And Paul, I'm not saying he was evil, but Paul is certainly not good to Angel.
No.
But Saul changes his name after his own redemption.
Yes.
To Paul.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not just Sarah who finds redemption in this book.
Yeah.
Paul finds his own redemption. Yeah. And I think Michael finds a little bit of a redemption too, because he looks upon himself as the protector, and I have to, and God's like,
yeah.
Back off.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not always up to you.
Right.
It can't, you're not always.
You can't always be.
So he has to back off. And that's a little bit of a redeeming thing for him. Not that he did anything wrong, but.
Yeah. But that was for him, I think, to not go and find her and bring her back again.
Yeah. Because he's wired like that. He's clearly wired like that.
Yeah.
And he's an older brother as well. So that just amplifies it.
Yeah.
And he wasn't able to protect his sister, so the drive to protect is even stronger. But I just thought it was interesting, especially Michael's name. I was like, well, the archangel.
I never thought of it like that. That's
because in a lot of ways he was like a guardian angel to her.
Yeah. But I think she made use of a few names. Miriam is obviously a biblical name. There's a few.
Yeah, that's
biblical names in there.
Mom. I know. Was it his mom? Her sister. Moses' sister was Miriam. There may have been other Miriams too, but that's the one that.
Yes, Moses' sister.
That's the Miriam that popped into my mind.
So I noticed that. Of course, I'm a name person.
Yeah.
I like names.
Yeah.
It's my thing. Please stop spelling your baby's name stupid.
Yeah. The use of all of the names that Michael used for her.
Uh-huh.
Yes.
The different names that he used, like when he called her Tirzah, It's like when he was seeing her kind of.
And for some reason, that name sounded familiar to me. Tirzah. I'm not sure if that's a biblical name, but that name sounded familiar.
Well, I think it was. I think that was biblical.
I think it was.
Was it biblical to Hosea or the book of Hosea? Or
I can't remember because I feel like he did explain what it meant.
Did he? Okay.
Why he was calling. But I think when he kind of.
Tirzah means delight in Hebrew.
And I think when he would look at her and take delight in her sexually,
yeah.
I think he would refer to her as that.
Oh, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She was one of the 5 daughters of I don't know this man's name, and he's been dead for thousands of years. Zelophehad.
Oh.
But also
Zelophehad.
To think about how that was redeemed for her as well. The act of lovemaking, because that was a horrible, horrendous experience for her entire life. She never saw that as a good thing.
Yeah.
And
well, because for her, it was always a dirty act.
Yeah.
It wasn't an act of love. It was an act of gratification.
Yes. And she was just used by people in that way. And so for that to be redeemed to her is amazing. Because I believe that it was, because it did talk about how, when she got to a place with Michael where she could feel something again, when they were intimate with one another, she felt something because before she felt like she was dead inside.
Yeah.
And so
it was a job.
It's like, you paid for me, do what you want to do. Yeah.
And that's wonderful. And that's beautiful in and of itself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That part of her life could be redeemed as well.
And God means for that part of a man and of a husband and wife. That's a beautiful aspect that he bestows upon them, and it's a beautiful act. Yeah. But again, Satan. That's how Satan operates. God gave that act to men, to husbands and wives. Mm-hmm. As a beautiful representation of their love for each other. Yeah. Well, of course, Satan has to pervert it and turn it into something dirty.
Well, and also that's how you procreate, and that's part of. He
said
it for that reason.
Go into the world and create, populate the world.
So it was created by God with good intent in mind and good purpose in mind. Of course, Satan and the fall of man and everything. It, like I said, tainted it, turned it into something that was never intended to be.
Yeah. Yeah. And a lot of people in the reviews that I read, and again, I get the feeling that these probably were Christian reviewers. They were put off by the fact that there was sensuality in the book, and they felt like Francine Rivers went too far with it. But again, I didn't think there was anything that bad, but some people can be very prudish, and I don't mean that in a disrespectful way, but some people can be prudish about it because our culture is so overly sexualized that people...
It's true.
They go the other way.
Yes, people, and especially Christians, even Christians, sometimes I think we forget that God gave sex as a beautiful thing. But in our over sexualized society, people's minds, our minds automatically go to the dirty aspects of it because.
Yeah. So I'm glad that she kind of addressed it because there's that side of it. Like there's two sides to it.
Yeah.
And that's the biblical side.
And she was focusing on the biblical side of it.
So. And she does push the edges.
She does.
But it's a man and his wife. It's a man and his wife we're talking about. There's nothing wrong with what they're doing.
Yeah.
Right. Because they were married. And like, he had to marry her right off the bat in order for that to remain biblical.
Otherwise, it could have been sorted.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
So it just had to happen that way. But, think about Song of Solomon in the Bible.
Yes.
It's kind of, it's very descriptive.
It was racier than anything in the book, honestly.
Yeah. So, oh my goodness, this was an amazing book. I really was shocked by it.
It really was.
And I was drawn into it pretty much from the beginning. Have either of you read any of her other works?
I honestly don't know that I have. And I'm
Okay.
I have
ashamed to say so.
See,
I love this book so much.
Last year, I read my first book by her. So this is my second book. I read Masterpiece. I think that's her newest release. And I did enjoy it. But this one, hands down. And I think this was her first book that she wrote to the Christian market, if I'm not correct. If
that's
I'm not
kind
mistaken.
of what the bio said, pretty much. I think.
Yeah. So in her first book, the Masterpiece book, I mean, it was impeccably written as well. So yeah, I would probably read more of her books. So I'm glad we finally got around to doing this. I'm glad Melanie felt well enough to do it. I really, because we toyed with the idea, because yesterday Melanie wasn't sure whether she was going to feel up to it. And so we were talking about Jessica and I doing it on our own. And it just broke my heart to do that, because I'm like, I want Melanie to be part of this, because we've been looking forward to reading this book forever. You know?
I think it was meant. It meant to be that you were in on this conversation. Because it would not be the same.
Okay. So
I'm glad I was able. Yeah. Yesterday was not the day.
I do, Melanie, I got to tell you something funny about, I think one of the last ones you and I did together, it was the Richard Paul Evans one. I think it was that one. You made a comment about what The Rock is cooking or something like that. Do you remember?
Yeah, you were talking about Bath and Body Works.
Okay, yeah.
And you said, did you smell that this morning? Did you smell that?
You said what the Rock is cooking. I had no idea what that meant.
You didn't get that reference.
I did not get that reference.
Wrestling.
So I was letting my friend Christina, I was letting her listen to some. There was something. What was that? It was that whole thing about the Bath and Body Works. I thought she would get a kick out of that. And so when you said what The Rock was cooking, she was like, she was cracking up, and I was like, okay, you're going to have to explain that to me. I do not. So you're
not a wrestling fan, Brett?
Well, no, not really.
Dwayne Johnson, though.
Yes, I do, and she explained that was something he used to say when he was a wrestler. So yes. she was rolling when you said that.
Well, I saw you had that typed out at the because he sent his notes to me. And that was like the first thing, and I was like, "Do you smell what The Rock is cooking?" And I made me think of that, but I was like, "I don't know that that's what he means."
I wrote that up there because I wanted to tell Melanie that. So
I'm like, what does that have to do?
I'm glad someone gets my references.
Yeah. Well, and bless her heart, Melanie, sometimes I don't get her references.
Which I had a brother and a dad growing up. Well, I don't know that my dad cared so much for it, but my brother liked to watch those WWE wrestling things. And, bystanders.
We didn't watch wrestling at the time. I was more of a Hulk Hogan, Andre the Giant, Macho Man, Randy Savage era, which was before Dwayne Johnson really hit it big. But you couldn't go anywhere. I was in high school. You couldn't go anywhere without some stupid guy.
Well, you hear that.
Smell what The Rock is cooking. And
just pop culture. You're going to hear things.
I'm walking.
You might not even know what it means or where you're from.
Yeah.
We're walking the halls of the high school, and it's being yelled all over the place, and people are walking around trying to raise their one eyebrow.
Yeah.
They just wind up looking stupid.
My dad and my brother used to watch.
It was a huge thing.
I would usually be in the bedroom reading. So so
I
just thought you would kick out of knowing when you said that. Like, I thought she was going to laugh at the the whole candle discussion. Yeah, when you said, guess what The Rock is cooking or whatever, we were driving, and she literally was like, she was rolling. I was like, okay, girl, you're going to explain to me because I don't get it. I don't get the reference. So what is it?
Just
have any closing arguments?
Arguments? You've been watching too much SVU.
Too much SVU, yeah.
Well, I just thank you guys for letting me come and be a part of this, because like you said,
thank you.
This was, I'm like, if you ever do Redeeming Love, be a part of that, because I just love that book. There was something about it when I read it the first time, like 20 years ago, that it just resonated with me. I was just enthralled by it, and it just really left its mark.
Yeah. Yeah.
I can see why it would. It's a beautiful book.
Yeah, I can see why it's such a beloved book, because and again, I think this is a good lesson to us, especially as readers. We get so in a box in what genres we read and in what books we read and what authors we read. I would have missed out on a gem of a book if I had not read this book.
Yeah.
And quite honestly, if it weren't for this podcast, I probably would never have read. I probably would never have read it.
Yeah.
So, get out of your box, and enjoy different things. I'm in a readers group on Facebook, and a few weeks ago, this lady posted something about, I read, I can't remember what she said, Regency, only read historical fiction, only Regency period, and I'm running out of books. Somebody please help me and give me some books I've never read. And I'm like, get out of your box.
Yeah. Which I'm guilty.
Well, and we all are, but
this is like my genre.
I tend to be eclectic in book reading. I kind of stay out of the box with reading.
I don't mean to be judgmental, but I'm guessing she's probably never read one Jane Austen novel, which was written during the Regency. I guarantee you, this is some sort of Bridgerton fan who
probably. Yeah.
I'm not trying to be judgmental, but odds are 80%. She's never read a novel that was actually written during the Regency period.
True, yeah.
Just saying. That's my experience with some of these people.
Yeah.
I could be wrong.
Well, before we go, I thought we would do one last thing. I thought we'd do a book giveaway.
Oh.
So I've got a paperback copy of Redeeming Love. And so I thought, for if anyone's made it this far, congratulations. Since this is a longer video, we're probably going to break this up into a part 1 and a part 2.
That'd be good.
That's what I was thinking.
Yeah, that'll probably make it more palatable to people. So if anybody's interested in winning a copy of the book, you can email us. I'm gonna have Jessica give you a secret word here in a little bit. You can email us at bookishintrovertspodcast@gmail.com. Just, of course, you can say whatever you want, but give us the secret word. You can go to our Facebook, Bookish Introverts Podcast on Facebook, or you can go on Instagram. We've got an Instagram it's Bookish Introverts Podcast. All you got to do is tell us the secret word. So, Jessica, what's the secret word they need to give us?
Wait a minute.
Uh-huh.
Wait a minute.
Can you guess?
You have to do this a certain way.
Oh, okay.
Okay. So, Jessica, just wait for me to finish, and then you say the secret word. Okay?
Okay.
The secret word is
redemption. I leaned into the mic.
There's a way to do these things, Brent.
What?
There's a way to do these things.
Do I need to insert a drum roll or something in post?
No. No.
So just send us the word redemption, or whatever. Just and we'll compile all the responses. I'm kind of tempted to say don't just leave the word on a post, because then anybody that didn't watch the video can, you know what I'm saying?
Cheat.
Exactly. We want people to watch it and kind of give us a try. So send us that.
It's like a 500-word essay.
Everybody that responds, and then we'll draw. And the next time we do the podcast, we'll tell who the winner is and get you the book sent out. So I've got a paperback copy of Francine Rivers' Redeeming Love, if anybody wants to win it.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
It's good. Worth the read.
Anybody else got anything to say? Everybody's talked out?
Yeah.
Well, we've hit a new high. We've officially made our longest video.
Wow. Golly.
Yeah.
Have we been here this long?
I know, right? Time flies when you're having fun. Yeah. Well, Jessica, thank you so much for coming on. And
so welcome. I had fun.
Did you have fun?
Yeah.
Oh, good. Well, I had fun too. I'm Melanie. I'm so grateful that you felt well enough to come on. Just know a lot of people are praying for you. Yes. We're thinking about you and praying for you. And so, listeners, we're thankful for all of you guys. We hope you'll come back and listen for our next podcast. So we're going to get off here, and thanks for listening. We'll talk to you all later.
Thank you. Bye.
Thanks for joining us on the Bookish Introverts podcast, where together we explore the worlds within the pages. Until next time, stay bookish.